My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching on real estate. And today we're going to be talking about what's going on in the MatSu Valley, looking specifically at the residential, the condo, and the multifamily market. This is one of the biggest markets we have here in the entire South Central Alaska, but really all of Alaska, also just in general. So it does kind of give us a good sense as to what's going on in the local market. Before we get started though, do make sure you give this video a like, and if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and subscribe. I know quite a few of you watch this channel without actually subscribing, and that actually does help me out quite a bit when you do that. So please go ahead and subscribe, and let's go and get this market video kicked off. First thing we want to look at on the residential side is how many properties are actually available, because that's going to be a really good indication on how the market is doing. If there's a lot of inventory, that means there's not a lot of demand. If there's not a whole lot of inventory, that means that there's usually proportionally a lot of demand in relation to how many properties are on the market. So this time last year, there's 512 properties available. This time, though, we're seeing there's approximately 464 properties that are available. So we're seeing a bit of a decrease in the number of properties that are available for the MatSu, and this is primarily going to be Wasilla and Palmer, but there are other properties here or other areas here in the MatSu Valley as well, but that's going to be the lion's share of it. I will say it's a decrease from what we've seen the year before, and it's pretty consistent with the trend we've seen for the entire year in the MatSu Valley, that there's just less available on the market than what we've historically seen. I will say though, it is definitely more options available than what's over in Anchorage right now. So take that as a ray of hope if you'd like. The next thing we see is that the number of properties that have actually sold went from about 218 homes that sold for the month of August this time last year to 170 this year. So we are, again, it's kind of keeping with the trend where we're just seeing less properties are selling from what we've seen the year before. There's still a pretty high demand in relation to how many properties are available on the market, but there's just less overall homes that are being bought and sold though, if that makes any sense. So yes, we are seeing a bit of a dip, and that's pretty in line with what we've seen with the inventory and the trend currently year to date for properties that are actually selling. Now, what we're seeing as far as the average sold price is that this time of year to date last year was about $383,000, and this year it's right around $405,000. So that does mean we have a little over a 5% increase for the average sold price, which is still lower than what we've seen historically. It's just kind of what we were predicting to begin with, that this year we were going to see not a dip, but kind of a slowing down of the rate of appreciation we're going to see, because this time last year, we had about approximately a 10% increase for the average sold price. The year before that, it was about a 15% increase, and then again about a 10% increase the year before that. So we do see that the rate at which things are increasing is starting to throttle back a bit, but we're not really seeing a dip. It's just increasing at a slower rate of what we did before. Just to give you an idea of how quickly we've appreciated, this is actually the first time in history, I think, we're year to date for August, where we're sitting at an approximate average of about 405,000. Anything over 400,000, that's new territory for the MatSu across the board for the entire average. Because yeah, usually the highest we've been has been about 380 something. This time year to date in 2019, before everything happened with COVID, was about 273,000. So that gives you an idea of just how much of an increase we've seen over just a couple of years. Now, we're not quite done just yet talking about what's going on with the average sold price and what the implications are for you as a buyer or for a seller. But let's go ahead and switch gears real quick and take a look at what's going on in the condo market, which the condo market we see in the MatSu Valley, it's not a particularly big part of the market, but it is, I suspect it is going to be a growing sector, and for that reason we do keep an eye on it. And we see that the number of properties available has actually gone from 3 this time last year to 6 this time year to date this year. Seeing a slight increase there, not big numbers either way, but still seeing an increase. The next thing we see is that the number of condos that have actually sold, again, the exact same numbers. This time last year we had 3, and this year we had 6 that actually sold. So there we go. Condo market's booming. Now, what we see for the average sold price is it went from about $268,000 this year to about $230,000 this year. That's right. We're actually seeing about a 14% drop in the average sold price for condos. Let's not get too excited though, because we have such a small sample size. That means that your volatility and the things that can just go extreme one direction or the other really does go through the roof. To give you an example, this time last year, there was about a 40% increase in the average sold price. So it's very volatile statistically just because we have a really small market. All right, let's go and take a break real quick. We'll be getting into the multifamily market and also talking about what the summary is, so what their implications are for you as a buyer or for a seller. Before we do that, though, I just wanted to make sure you were all aware that we have a monthly meetup for those of you who are just getting to Alaska, or maybe you've been here for a while and you're just looking for an opportunity to really plug in and get involved with a group of people. And we have information about that in a monthly Facebook group, which is going to be in the description section down below. So go ahead and follow that, and that's where you'll get information about stuff we'll be doing, like game night or hike or bonfire, stuff like that that's pretty low key, but gives you an opportunity to kind of meet and interact with other people. So feel free to jump into that group, and let's go and finish up by taking a look at what's going on in the multifamily market. This time last year, for the multifamily market, we see that there were about 37 properties available, and now there are 45. Now, that's a pretty sizable uptick, and we're actually starting to see that we're starting to inch back to about where we were back in 2019. There were about 62. So we are seeing, still not a huge market either way as far as multifamily goes, but we are starting to see kind of a return to normalcy for the multifamily markets. Now, the next thing we see is that this time last year, there were 8 multifamily properties that were bought and sold. This time of year, 11. So seeing, again, kind of the exception to the trend for what we've seen in the condo, the multifamily markets, we're actually seeing a very small increase for the number of properties that have actually been bought and sold. Last but not least, we see the average sold price went from about $494,000 this time last year to $564,000 this year, which is a 14% increase for the average sold price. It's very hard to extrapolate a whole lot of averages when we're looking at multifamily, and also when it's kind of a smaller sample size to begin with. I just kind of mentioned this as a way to saying, had a fourplex from a couple years ago and you've been keeping up with the rents and making sure the building and all the tenants are well taken care of, I would expect to see an increase for the property at this point. I'm not sure it's around that 14% increase for the average sold price, but I would be pretty confident in saying that yes, there has been an increase. So what does all of this mean put together? Well, on the residential side, if you are a seller, still a great time to be getting your property on the market, but we are definitely not in 2020, 2021 anymore. As soon as the interest rates went back up, we're starting to see a pulling back of the demand from buyers. At the same time, though, we're also seeing a pulling back of the active inventory because a lot of sellers are deciding just to hang on to their properties instead of putting them on the market. That makes total sense. There are still people who are going to need to buy and sell, though, and they are going to continue making up the lion's share of this current market that we find ourselves in. If you are a buyer right now, what's the big takeaway for you? Well, really, the big thing I would say is try to look past all the nihilistic doom and gloom, the world's coming to an end headlines you see out there when it comes to real estate. Because the fact of the matter is, there's a possibility that we can still get you in to make something happen. We just have to make sure that we are fully optimizing the options we have available to us, and that we are coherently and succinctly and working towards a goal, working towards a strategy that's actually going to help you to accomplish your goal. Simply running along in the situation, just kind of hoping something pops up and looking at an endless string of houses is just not going to cut it anymore. We have to make sure we are going in with surgeon's precision to make sure we can find what it is that you're looking for and make sure that we are using the right strategy. The other thing I would say, all the headlines out there about, housing market's never going to come down and, everything's just too expensive. Well, the good thing is once you actually acquire a property, the biggest line item on your entire budget, which is going to be the mortgage, stays the same. So no longer do you have to worry about rent going up. Plus, all the increase of the prices is actually something you kind of look forward to, because that means the value of the asset you purchased just went up in value. So once you get to the other side of it, things do start to feel a whole lot better and you can just breathe. Now, if you're an investor, There's more options out there. What we've seen before, the rents are going up really across the entire country, and Alaska is definitely not the exception. So just make sure you're on top of your rents, you're taking good care of your tenants and taking good care of your building, and there's no reason you shouldn't see an increase for your investments. If you have any further questions, do feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to help as best I can. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.